All right, good morning. First thing I want to do is introduce who's up here, standing here with us today. I'm joined by Chief of Detectives Antoinette Ursitti, Deputy Chief of Detectives Kevin Bruno. I'd also like to introduce all of our chiefs, the Chief of Patrol, John Hine, Chief of BIA is Chief Talley, Chief of Constitutional Policing, Angel Navales, and the Chief of the Bureau of Counterterrorism, Dwayne DeVries. Area 1 Commander, Nikki Watson, and members of Area 1 Detective Division. We are also joined, and I'm proud to say, we're also joined here by Cook County State's Attorney Eileen O'Neill Burke and Deputy Mayor of Community Safety, Gary Gatewood. We're here to announce charges against an offender who is responsible for 6 murders that occurred in 2020. We're here because 21-year-old Antonio Reyes is charged with 5 felony counts of first-degree murder and 4 felony counts of attempted first-degree murder. Though he was charged in these cases yesterday, Reyes has been in custody of Cook County Jail since 2021, where he is being held on a separate murder charge. These are 6 lives that were brutally taken. The charges in these cases reflect the perseverance and dedication of our detectives. Since 2020, these detectives have been working to bring justice and accountability in these cases. They combed through an immense amount of physical and digital evidence, including video, while leveraging technology, connecting Reyes to each of these murders. They also received assistance from community members who played an important role in providing detectives with vital information and evidence throughout the course. This may have gone out. Can you hear me? Okay, that's much better. Sorry about that. Not once have these detectives forgotten why they do this job. They investigated these cases for more than 4 years in the memory of the victims and the family members of these victims, and also our community members who have had to suffer through this trauma. The Chicago Police Department will never forget those who have been affected by this type of violence. I also want to thank Cook County State's Attorney Eileen O'Neill Burke and her office for their partnership in reviewing these cases and securing charges. We all share a goal of making our neighborhoods safer. And this is an amazing example of how we are working together in pursuit of safety. Our detectives work regularly with felony review as this case progressed. And this work is why we now have taken the first step toward justice. The 5 murders he was charged with yesterday includes the murder of a 31-year-old male victim in the 2600 block of West 59th Street on March 2nd, 2020. The murder of a 21-year-old male victim in the 4100 block of South Sacramento on April 5th, 2020. He was also charged with the attempted murder of an additional victim in this incident. The murder of a 16-year-old male victim in the 5200 block of South Holman on May 1st, 2020. The murder of a 31-year-old male victim in the 5400 block of South Holman on November 8th, 2020. He was also charged with the attempted murder of 3 additional victims. The murder of a 20-year-old male in the 4700 block of the 4700 block of West 59th Street on November 9th, 2020. I specifically want to speak to the shooting from November 8th, 2020. The 3 attempted murder charges are for children between the ages of 3 and 9. These children were in a vehicle with the adult victim who was killed in a barrage of bullets. The murder he was initially charged with and being held in Cook County Jail for was a 26-year-old male victim in the 5800 block of South Rockwell Street on June 24th, 2020. This speaks to the level of disregard this offender had toward human life. It's difficult to comprehend how anyone could easily take someone's life, and especially so many in 1 year. To that, we have to speak of our repeat offenders. When we are dealing with someone who's this violent, we have to remove them from the streets. The collaboration between the Chicago Police Department and the state's attorney's office is the way to get there. It's the way to stop these offenders when they offend the first time. We have 6 lives, and who knows how many he may have been responsible for. We'll continue to look into that. It is not ordinary that we see an individual like this. But when we do, we must take swift action. This started when Mr. Reyes was a teenager. That's when this needed to be stopped. We have to bring attention to these types of violent crimes so that we can keep our community safe, so that we can keep trauma down in our communities. Those who are destroying lives and destroying our community, we must stay vigilant. I want to again thank the Area 1 Detective Division for everything they put into these cases. I also want to thank the patrol officers who were first responders to the scene and properly documented the facts of the case to follow up on the part of our detectives. I also want to extend our support to the loved ones of the victims who we hope can find some measure of comfort in knowing that we've taken this first step to resolution. With that, I'd now like to introduce the state's attorney, Eileen O'Neill Burke.
Thank you, Superintendent. Good morning, all. Today is a day to celebrate the determined police work that brought these charges. And hopefully we will get some measure of justice for the families of the victims. It's sad. It's sad to think about a 17-year-old committing serial murders over the course of 9 months. How many people were taken? Defendant Antonio Reyes was already awaiting trial on murder and attempt murder charges. While he was in custody for those charges, he allegedly tried to kill his cellmate with a shank and has charges pending there as well. Today, there's 5 additional murder charges against Antonio Reyes. If I could add on to what the superintendent just told us about the information that we know already, one victim was killed when he went to the gas station to buy a pop early one evening. Another victim was sitting in a parked car with a friend on Palm Sunday afternoon when he was shot and killed. Another victim's only crime was taking his family to buy a new puppy one afternoon. He was shot and severely wounded in front of his 3 children, and he succumbed to his injuries months later. None of these people had ever met Antonio Reyes before, and there's no reason to suspect Antonio Reyes had any reason to target them. But that's exactly what he did. So I want to acknowledge the fine detective work by CPD to connect the dots and to bring these cases in. I also want to acknowledge and applaud the ASAs who have worked tirelessly to get to the point, to this point, to meet our burden of proof. So Kevin Duboni is head of our criminal bureau. He is here, and the ASA in charge of these of this defendant and the pending charges is Sarah Grigorovic from our homicide division. They are 2 of the finest attorneys I have ever met. We have one extremely violent shooter who has been taken off the street today. Justice will be served, and that is a good thing. But we have a lot more work to do. Thank you.
Now I'd like to introduce Gary Gatewood.
Thank you, Superintendent, and thank you, Madam State's Attorney. Today is about the relentless pursuit of justice. The Chicago Police Department never stopped the pursuit of justice to bring closure and justice to these families. People should not be able to wreak havoc on the streets of the city of Chicago. Today was a massive step in the direction to stop folks from wreaking that havoc. I cannot commend the work of the Chicago Police Department enough. Our entire administration, our entire city is grateful for the work they did to remove a serial killer from the streets. I cannot thank the work of the State's Attorney's Office enough either. This is a step in the right direction. We'll continue our pursuits of justice together, collaboratively, because we know the work that we can do to remove people who are wreaking havoc from the streets needs to happen in collaboration, and that's what we continue to look forward to. With that, I'll give it back to the superintendent to open it up for questions.
Well, thank you, Deputy Mayor. With that, we'll take any questions.
Hi, Superintendent Terry Kashner,
How are you,
WBBM
Terry?
Radio. Hi, good morning. Was there a point where you realized that these shootings might be connected, or was it early on? Can you talk about that at all, sir?
Well, you know what? For that, I'll bring up the Chief of Detectives, Antoinette City, to answer that question.
Thank you, Superintendent. Yes, I think a significant aspect of the investigation was the recovery of a weapon, a .40 caliber handgun that happened in the summer of 2020 that once we were able to process the weapon, it helped us see a relationship to other scenes where similar casings had also matched that particular firearm. And that's just one feature of it, but that's an example of when you get evidence and you start to be able to tie it together to different locations, then you're able to start to build on that case. So when we're talking about the extent of work that these detectives did, now you're going back, you're making sure you're pulling video, you're putting everything together in order to identify a particular suspect. And they did it tirelessly. They did it obviously thoroughly because we're here with charges today. But I would say that that's one feature that was very important. And I also want to note that the offender's social media footprint was fairly significant. And so part of this investigation was being able to take some of those social media postings and link it to some of the incidents that were happening.
Kevin Beasley, Cook County Chronicle. Was there any connection between any of the victims? Were they just randomly targeted? Or were there confrontations that happened?
At this point, we don't have any information that the victims were connected.
Good morning, Mayor Kawash, ABC 7 Chicago. So with that said, are you looking for any other offenders that may have been involved in these shootings, or did he act alone? Any gang activity that you know of?
At this point, several of these cases we are considering as closed. We're also going to continue to look at additional cases to see associates that he may have been with and their role in those incidents. The important thing is the facts that we were able to collect at this point specifically led to being able to identify this offender as the one who ultimately pulled that trigger and ended these innocent people's lives.
Charlie DeMar with CBS News Chicago.
How are you, Charlie?
From the way that these crimes have been described, they do sound random in nature. Have you been able to piece together any type of motivation at this point, and do you believe that there are any more victims connected to the suspect?
Well, based on the information that we have right now, and as Chief City explained, that we're going to continue to look through things. You know, we have cases that we still have to clear. So we'll continue to work on cases. And look, let me just talk a little bit about what Chief City was mentioning. There's a collaborative effort in the way that we work around these situations right now. Gathering information, our Crime Gun Intelligence Center, where we're now tracing weapons at a much faster rate, which gets us information back in these cases, which helps us resolve cases like this a lot quicker. So those collaborative efforts are going to continue, and we're going to continue to move forward just in case we haven't uncovered something. But right now, I can tell you the work that has been done by the Detective Division on this has just been, the level of resilience in it is just amazing. And then the work coming out of the State's Attorney's Office to work with us to secure these charges has been great.
You applauded the detectives' work in this case. From talking to victims' families over the years, sometimes, as you're aware, they do lose hope. They feel that their loved one is just a manila folder sitting on a detective's desk. These crimes go back to 2020. As you said, you hope that this gives families hope, I assume. Can you touch on what you'd want other families, these families, the victims of these families, to keep in mind that hopefully you are able to bring justice.
Oh, well, we want them to look at this as an example. We're looking at 5 murders that were unsolved since 2020. And the detective division, Area 1 Detective Division, continued to work on these murders, and finally were able to gather enough evidence to get charges approved. Also working along with the state's attorney's office to make sure that they're providing the evidence necessary to get those charges approved. So I want families to know that we're continuing to work on their cases. We know that sometimes this takes time, and we know that people are suffering through this trauma. This is a traumatic experience for any family to lose a family member like that. And when you think of 3 children from the ages of 3 to 9 who were fired upon, you know, if I'm a family member of those people, I want justice also. And I just want everyone to know that that's what we're working toward. We're working toward bringing them justice. Sometimes it's slow, but we want everybody to know that these detectives continue to work on the case.
Yeah, Jorge Munoz from Univision Chicago.
How are you?
Could you share us more details about where and when did you arrest Antonio Reyes, please?
Here, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, so just to clarify one point, our offender was in custody at the time that we were able to obtain the charges for these 5 additional incidents. Now, he is in custody from an arrest that was made in December of 2020, and that was in relation to a murder that happened in June of 2020.
Hi, my name is Priscilla from Telemundo Chicago. I wanted to just confirm, I think you just mentioned it, is what he was arrested for in 2020 when he was 17. So can you just talk a little bit about his previous history? He committed some of these crimes at the age of 17 and has been arrested ever since.
What I do want to say is I'm going to be limited in what I can say about this offender's background because he was a juvenile. He was 17 years old when these incidents occurred. He's currently 21 years old. We did place the charges against him on yesterday's date, but he is in custody for incidents that occurred when he was 17 years old, and that is all I'm able to say.
Final question.
Thank you. Courtney Spinelli with WGN. Good morning.
How are you, Courtney?
Good morning. Well, how are you?
Good, good.
One thing that comes to mind when you guys were announcing all of these charges was the emphasis you put on the community collaboration, the evidence, everything that led to this. How crucial was witness cooperation, cooperation from the public, and what sort of message does that send really for how effective and needed that is for any case to be able to start the process of getting justice for families here and beyond this?
It's always effective because when you're putting evidence together, it's not just one thing. It's a multitude of things. And information from the community can spark that off, right? And it gives us a starting point. As the detective division continues to work through these cases, work along with the state's attorney's office, providing as much information as we can to gather as much information as we can so that we can now present that information to the state's attorney's office, and then having the state's attorney's office guide us in a way of what they need that's going to be helpful to obtaining those charges. So that community collaboration is a huge part of it. Look, I've said from the time that I've started this job that the Chicago Police Department cannot do this alone. The state's attorney's office cannot do this alone. And even together, the two of us, we still can't do this alone. We need people to provide information. It helps us in these situations, and we want to make sure that we keep our community safe. And in order to do that, we're going to have to work closely with our community members. Okay? Thank you.